Chelsey Turpening Coxsey, founder of The Way of Genius. This is the pattern I keep seeing, part one of three-part series of chronic illness, autoimmune conditions, and the subconscious mind. Real client work, real science, held honestly all the way through. If you're catching this episode for the first, no problem. Every episode stands on its own. You can find the rest of the series right here on my channel if you want the full arc. This work comes from years of my own research and client practice. The same method I teach in my courses, my workbook, and the platform I'm building, Eden and the Psyche Dojo. If any of this resonates, subscribing genuinely helps something real, making metacognition accessible to more people, not just the few who can already afford a coach. So, let's get into it. If you're living with something chronic, or an autoimmune diagnosis that's never fully made sense even to the people treating you, I want to tell you what I've actually watched happen over and over, working with real people through dreamwork and the subconscious mind. Part 1, the pattern I keep seeing. Here's what shows up again and again in real client work. A part of someone's internal system has often been organizing around a physical symptom for years, sometimes longer than the diagnosis itself existed. And that organization shows up in dream work long before the person ever consciously connects the two. If you've ever read Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps a Score, you already know the core idea. Trauma doesn't just live in memory, it lives in the body itself. And what I'm describing is that same principle, but traced backward into the dream state, before it ever fully surfaces as a diagnosis. I think of this as a real subconscious team, quietly working in support of you the whole time, even when it doesn't feel that way. Picture a construction site with two different crews on it. Parts are the ones actually laying pipe, wiring, and doing the hands-on functional work. One might organize entirely around a symptom, almost like it's been trying to flag something for years, the way an electrician flags a wiring problem before the lights actually ever go out. Archetypes are the site foremen, not doing the physical labor themselves, but deciding which section of the building gets attention next, tending which pathways deepen. Different roles, same crew, all of it working on your behalf, whether you've consciously met any of them or not. If that distinction is new to you, I actually go a lot deeper into how parts and archetypes work together as the same crew, different jobs, in my Parts and Archetypes lecture on this YouTube channel. Worth a watch if this is landing. So, here's a piece of the actual mechanism I keep coming back to. The nervous system carries pain stories the same way the subconscious does. A pain story becomes a physical story, held in the body long before anyone names it that plainly. And in my experience, the unconscious tends to change first before the nervous system catches up, which means we can actually interface with that change consciously, on purpose, instead of just waiting for the body to eventually follow. Think of it like a leak behind a wall. The water stain on your ceiling is the nervous system's symptoms, real, visible, undeniable. But the actual pipe, the source, is somewhere else entirely. Hidden, and painting over the stain never fixes the leak. This is where the unconscious does most of its important work. Not overriding the nervous system, but slowly help turning it back on through communication. Real dialogue restored gradually between the two systems that were never actually meant to work in isolation from each other in the first place. If it helps to think of it this way, your conscious mind is the software running on the top, the interface you actually see and interact with. Your subconscious is closer to the operating system underneath, running the deeper process the software depends on. Mostly invisible until something in it needs your direct attention. So take a second here if you want to, and just notice what's happening in your body even right now as you're listening to this lovely podcast. No need to do anything with it, just notice. This is where biofeedback work tends to actually begin. Not with the physical symptom directly, but with the pain story and the pattern underneath it. The story that became the pattern, that became the physical body's own story, that became the pain itself. Once that's actually in view, the team reveals its real roles. Parts show up holding real specific solutions, not abstract advice, but actual pathways to turn the system back on and heal through whatever trauma or illness got stored there. Archetypes do something different alongside them, tending the neural pathway itself, holding the experiential work that lets healing actually happen, not just get understood intellectually. This isn't a new idea, even if the language is. People have shown up in dreams as healers, physicians, guides, carrying real information across nearly every culture with a written history. Ancient Greeks traveled to sleep in temples, specifically hoping for a healing dream, and plenty of people today still describe a dream figure appearing right before an unexplained shift in how they feel. Teachers like Robert Moss have done real serious work documenting exactly this territory. And if you're part of that world already, some of this will feel very familiar. I'm not claiming every one of those stories is literal. I'm saying the pain itself is old, consistent, and cross culture enough that dismissing it outright would be its own kind of unscientific. So, parts and archetypes go hand in hand here. One reveals the solution, the other tends the pathway that the solution needs to travel. Healing and wholeness need both, the electrician and the foreman working the same site. And I want to be precise about what I'm claiming and what I'm not. I'm not saying dream work cures autoimmune disease. What I'm saying, based on what I've actually watched happen repeatedly, is that the body organizes and communicates real information through symbol and dream. And when people learn to actually receive that information instead of dismissing it, its real measurable shifts often tend to follow. Not always, not always on a guaranteed timeline, but often enough that I think it deserves to be taken very seriously. Why this isn't just one story. What strikes me the most across every version of this I've seen is how consistent the shape of it is. Even when the specific symptom, the specific dream imagery, and the specific person is completely different. The consistency is exactly why I don't think this is coincidence, even though I also don't think it's proven the way a controlled clinical study would prove it. I didn't invent this formula. It was handed to me over and over from the unconscious mind of every client I've worked with on this, revealed the same way again and again until I couldn't call it anything but a real pattern. So, in closing, this episode was about the pattern itself, a real repeated, worth talking seriously. In the next episode, I want to walk through what the actual science says about the mind body connection underneath all of this and exactly where the honest edge of that research sits. So, thank you. And until next time.